job was to ensure that government policy was implemented by the military administration. In his diary, which was published many years later, Meinertzhagen recorded an attempt by Colonel Waters Taylor, the governor's chief of staff, to use a well-known Arab agitator to sabotage the outcome of the San Remo conference.
Colonel Waters Taylor and his wife were very strong pro-Arab and supported Haj Amin in instigating the riot in 1920 in Easter.
Colonel Waters Taylor met with El-Husseini, Haj Amin, and he told him, and this is a quote, that he had a great opportunity to show the world that Zionism was unpopular, not only with the Palestine administration, but also in Whitehall. That wasn't true, actually. And he said that if disturbances of sufficient violence took place over Easter, then both General Bowles and General Allenby would advocate the abandonment of the Jewish national home.
According to Meinertzhagen, Colonel Waters Taylor went on to tell him that freedom could only be attained through violence. Haj Amin took the colonel's advice and instigated a riot. Agitators addressed the Muslim crowds, urging them forward against the Jews, who had been disarmed on the orders of the administration. All Jewish policemen had been relieved from duty in the Jewish quarter of the old city. The riot started with cries of, "We shall drink the blood of the Jews. Don't be afraid, the government is with us." The mob rushed in, brandishing knives and clubs. The government surrounded the old city with a cordon of police and troops to prevent outside help. At the time, the Edelson family was living in the Jewish quarter. Yiske's father and older brother were out of town when the trouble started.
We were 5 women alone in the house, and I peeped through the window, through the curtain, and I saw a whole lot of Arabs standing. They were ready to climb up the steps into our home. But we had an Arab who used to bring us drinking water, and this was his only means of survival. And they asked him, "Do Jews live there?" And he said, "No, no Jews." And they went away. It didn't take very long, about 2 days, when I heard Jewish commandments spoken by a very, very strong, powerful person. And I looked through the window, and believe it or not, it was Ze'ev Jabotinsky who was there. And after 2 weeks, he saved the Jews of Jerusalem, although many were killed.
Ze'ev Jabotinsky, who had fought with distinction in the British Army during World War I, managed to break through the police cordon to quell the bloodshed.
Jabotinsky and his self-defense boys were locked up in jail. Jabotinsky was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment. And the only reason why he didn't serve that term was because there was an uproar which was absolutely unprecedented.
Haj Amin was given a 5-year sentence for his overt role in the pogrom, but he escaped in mysterious circumstances. The following year, 43 Jews were slaughtered in another riot in Jaffa. A pattern had been set that would haunt the rest of British rule over Palestine.
The British appointed what was called the Haycraft Commission in 1921. And although the panel concluded that the Arabs were the aggressors, it rationalized the cause of the attack. They said that the fundamental cause of the riots was a feeling among the Arabs of discontent and hostility to the Jews due to political and economic causes and their conception of the Zionist policy.
Meanwhile, Colonel Meinertzhagen, the chief political officer, had reported back to the Foreign Office the complicity of the military administration in causing the violence. As a result, the military administration was disbanded and replaced with a civil administration. Sir Herbert Samuel was appointed as the first High Commissioner of Palestine. The Jewish community was overjoyed by his appointment. The Arabs were less than happy, and so were some members of the British administration.
It's reported that one of the staff of the British Civil Administration said, and there I was at Government House, and a huge Union Jack flying, and underneath it sat a bloody Jew.
The San Remo Conference of April 1920 had awarded Britain the mandate to govern Palestine. This gave the Balfour Declaration official status.
The Balfour Declaration was implemented by its incorporation, virtually word for word, in the mandate. Now, the mandate is a document, you might call it an international agreement between the League of Nations on the one part and Britain on the other, in which Britain undertook towards the League of Nations that it would administer Palestine in accordance with the terms of the mandate.
The Colonial Office was given this responsibility. The Colonial Secretary at that time was Winston Churchill. Although Churchill was always a strong advocate for the Jewish national home, sometimes his actions suggested otherwise. One of his first actions was to introduce a white paper dividing Palestine down the Jordan River, which resulted in the formation of a separate Arab homeland called Transjordan under the administration of the Hashemite Emir Abdullah.
The effect of it was that no Jewish settlement was permitted in Transjordan, and that accounted for about 77% of the territory that was mandated to Britain by the League of Nations. So as a result, you have 78% of the territory which could have been used for Jewish settlement was restricted and was primarily intended for Arab settlement. And in fact, Kirkbride, who was the British resident at the time, mentions in his book that it had been the intention to have a population transfer of the Arabs from the west of the Jordan to the east of the Jordan, but that never took place.